Hi, welcome to the Glopo class. Today we are going to start with Human Rights Unit. I have already posted my two to three videos on my channel, but today I would be taking you through first slide so that it can be a sort of revision and you can understand the pattern of my presentation also. In the description box below, I would be sharing the link of this presentation. If possible, then open it in Google Slides. You would be able to see the speaker's notes. So let's get started with human rights. This is what the IB recommending to you in terms of these 3 pages. These are the prescribed content. If you see, then there are the 4 key concepts. Human rights itself, justice, liberty and equality, right? The first chapter says nature and evolution of human rights. Here IB is expecting you to know the definition of human rights, UDHR, development in human rights over time and space. That means his historical context and some of the laws which have been written under this human rights. This usually we cover under the codification of human right, codification of human right. So this codification would be the part of the next chapter. So nature and evolution of human right is nothing but the definition, UDHR and the historical context. Further it talks about codification, protection, monitoring of human right. So codification means that how it has been codified in the laws, protection, who all are protecting, monitoring, who all are monitoring human right, who all are assuring that everyone gets human right equally, right? Now human rights laws and treaties, what all can be covered, okay? It can be covered, but not necessarily that you have to cover all these things, so you can't edit or delete any. You can. This is the prescribed content over here and these are the few examples, okay? This side it's few example what you see. Then you have protection and enforcement of human right at different levels. As I said, monitoring, this I would be covering further in my topic, in my video. Now today's video is gonna be pretty long because I am gonna cover all the slides so that you know how I am going to cover this complete human rights unit. I'm not taking any activity. I'm just giving you the overall glimpse of human rights unit. Then the third final topic of this one covers practice of human rights. Now in this practice of human rights, you have claims on human rights where you cover number of the case studies. For example, labor rights, indigenous land claims, movement for gender equality, debates about same-sex marriage, but not limited to only these human rights. You can cover many more human rights. Another thing is violation of human right. Okay, so violation of human right in the form of child soldiers, human trafficking, forced labor, relocation. Okay, so all these are the examples. Now under this debate we cover individual versus collective human right, universal versus cultural relativism and politicization of human right. So this is pretty short unit. If you see, then it is divided majorly into 3 parts, right? So first part you have here nature and evolution of human rights. The second part is codification, protection and monitoring of human right, where you would be studying about the state actors and the non-state actors. And the third one is practice of human right, where you would be studying about the theories in terms of universalism versus cultural relativism, individual versus collective rights and politicization of human right, along with what all violations of human rights have taken place, right? So these are the 3 topics of human rights. So this is what the overview of the chapter of human rights. Let's go further. Now, the moment you would be able to access my presentation, I would highly recommend you to watch this video. This video is of around 10 minutes and this video beautifully covers the historical context of human right. Let's go further. Now here I have written down 7 main historical events of human rights, right? So it starts from Cyrus Cylinder, Magna Carta, Petition of Right, United States Declaration of Independence, US Constitution, Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizens, the first Geneva Convention. Now remember, you don't have to mug up all these events. This is just to build background, historical background of this unit, that how did this human rights evolve, right? So you don't have to mug up any dates. It's okay even if you forget any historical event. It's just to make your base solid, sound enough, right? So this is what this historical event is talking about. If I talk about the historical context, then the earliest ideas about human rights were primarily about negative rights. Now you may have this question, what is this negative rights? All right, so this I would be covering further, though I have already published a video on my channel under human rights unit. Thinkers and intellectuals who wrote about human rights were educated and privileged men, right? Those who were thinking about this one. They believed that rights were negative freedoms from state power. That means that whatever state is, wherever we ask state not to interfere, those rights are called as negative rights. They believed that rights were negative freedoms from state power and were mostly political and legal rights for people who already occupied a position of high social status. Although these early rights theories describe natural rights, the application of these rights were often restricted to land-owning men. So that means the earlier rights were actually given to the privileged people, right? Privileged people. And if you see, then these privileged people, they wanted to have negative rights where there is no interference of the government. Further, even in nominally democratic states like the US and Great Britain, voting rights were restricted to those who owned property. Women, slaves, children, and men without property were excluded from many political and legal rights. So that means these rights were not were exclusively given to privileged one. Okay, so not the inclusive one, right? So far so clear about this one. However, it is also important to recognize that although people thought about these rights in the past, they were by no means guaranteed or protected. The rights of man outlined during the French Revolution, as you see it over here, French Revolution, right? This one. However, it is important to recognize that although people thought about these rights in the past, they were by no means guaranteed or protected. The rights of man outlined during the French Revolution were not put into practice, and the power of the state continued to violate many negative freedoms. Press censorship was common in much of Europe throughout the 19th century. Now, in present moment, you see, modern human rights are more comprehensive, right? It's not just covering privileged people, but it is covering all strata of the society. Human rights are no longer limited to legal and political freedom, but are extended to include economic rights, social and cultural rights as well. So earlier what was happening? Earlier this was limited only to political and legal, but over a period of time you see it is encompassing economic, social and cultural rights as well. Right. Furthermore, modern human rights explicitly identify groups or minorities that claim special rights. This tradition emerged during the late 19th century when there was an emergence of citizen activism. Right? Let me erase this one, what we have already seen. So now further we are seeing the development in the human rights. Primarily in the United States and Western Europe, women's movements demanded voting rights, right? Christians community demanded fair treatment for workers and the abolition of child labor. So you see the progression of the human rights. Most dramatically, the abolition movement in the United States resulted in the official end of institutionalized slavery. In fact, many non-governmental organization appeared for the first time during the 19th century, including an organization that campaigned to protect animals from unethical treatment. So you see the evolution of the human right. Following the Second World War and when the full extent of the Holocaust was revealed, human rights entered a new period of rapid expansion. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was published in 1948, which we would be studying further. And over the subsequent decades, an international human rights system was established by the United Nations. Today, there are numerous international human rights treaties and declarations that cover topics from indigenous peoples' rights to the rights of children and prohibition on torture and war crimes. So this is all about the history of human right? This is what we are talking about, where we are talking about negative right, which it started evolving from the privileged people to the to encompassing all the strata of the society, not only limiting to the legal and the political right, but even including economic, socio-cultural right as well. So this is about the historical background of the human right. Now further to this unit, okay, I have given you here this comic strip, right? You can have a look. Now before we go deeper into the topic, though I have covered the same one, you can have a look at that video. Here I am covering the definition of the key concept as per the IB guidebook, what IB guidebook suggests. So before I go into that, I would love to know your perception about the human right. What do you think? What is human right for you? You can write in the comment box below, or you can pause the video and you can think of it. I'm leaving this definition on you. You can read it later on. Okay, this is the definition of human right as per the guidebook. Now this one is about the liberty, right? This is another key concept of human rights. The concept of liberty refers to having freedom and autonomy. It is often divided into positive and negative liberty. What we discussed under the evolution of human right, we discussed about the negative right which were demanded at the earliest. With negative liberty, now what is negative liberty? Negative liberty defined as individuals having the freedom from external coercion. That means that wherever there is no external coercion, that freedom or that liberty is known as the negative liberty. For example, less laws and constrained by government, right? So in case if I want to have freedom of movement, that is my negative liberty. And positive liberty defined as individual having the autonomy to carry out their own rational will with the support of the government. For example, right to education, right? I want government support. Right to get paid job. This is again positive liberty where I need the support of the government. Some scholars reject this distinction and argue that in practice one form of liberty cannot exist without the other. Very true. If you will think, then it is very hard to silos both kind of definition. It is also questioned if such an understanding of liberty is sufficient for an interdependent world in which the seeming freedom and autonomy of some may depend on lack of some forms of liberty for others. Hence, debates on equality inform our understanding of liberty as well. So that means that all the key concepts are interdependent over here. Interdependent over here. You cannot study all these concepts in isolation. Further to the concept of equality, egalitarian theories are based on a concept of equality that all people or groups of people are seen as having the same intrinsic intrinsic value. Equality is therefore closely linked to justice and fairness. Now see, here you see the concept of equality, here you see the concept of justice and fairness, and if I include all these three concepts, liberty, equality and justice, you would see that this is nothing but demand of human rights. As egalitarians argue that justice can only exist if there is equality. Increasingly, with growing polarization within societies, equality is also linked to liberty, as different people have differing possibilities to be free and autonomous. Now, this is about equality. Now, further to this unit, I would like to go a bit deeper into the concept of justice. I would suggest you to watch this video. After watching this video in the class, we would run discussion on the basis of this one, because this video is actually covering a number of theories over here. I would like to introduce the theory of John Rawls. Do you know which theory he proposed? It's veil of ignorance, right? So I would be covering that also. So kindly watch these two videos. Now this is a link which is advisable to those who want to dig deeper into justice, and it would be suggested to those who are taking philo also, right? Philosophy and international relations. So how justice is playing an important role in the world of ethics. Okay, so kindly go through this site in case if you want to have some extra readings. All right, so this has been covered in one of my videos. What are the characteristics of human rights? I'm not covering it here. What is positive right or the negative right? What are the three generation or types of human right? Okay, I'm just taking you through this quickly. Theoretical lenses, how do you fit liberal perspective and realistic perspective? And then this is my second video which I have already posted, UDHR. What all UDHR mentioned in the United Nations, in the United Nations, and this one is the video, and these are the short videos which are less than 1 minute. If you feel that you are not able to remember all the 30 rights, then pictography memory may help you. Watch these videos to remember all the rights. A few of the case studies which are connected to each of these articles, right? So here all the videos are attached. A few of the description given in my speaker's notes. Roma community, number of the case studies are covered over here. Migration crisis, usually I cover under these 30 human rights, right? This would give you wonderful case study. You must go through this one. War crimes, I have posted my video on war crimes. Have a look. Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib. You can skip Abu Ghraib, but you should do Guantanamo Bay's case study, but get to know what this case study of Abu Ghraib here. Then ethnicities, copyright, which is the final UDHR on this presentation. All right, this is now the topic to be discussed in the class. Under which article do you see the violation of human rights? All right. So you get some time to discuss where do you see the violation of human right. You have to write down the article and the case study. Okay, the case study what we have covered, you need to compare. Compare in the sense you need to integrate articles and the case study. Now this is the question which has been asked by IB. How you can connect TOK to it. Another question asked by RIB. One more question on this topic. Okay, this is a fun activity. All right. So that's it. That's it about this human right unit so far. Now let's go to the third lesson of this human right. So what did we cover so far? We covered uh, the nature and scope and evolution of human rights. Now we are going further and we are studying about upholding of human rights. If you remember, in the beginning of this video, I spoke about three big chapters of human right. One was nature and the scope of human right. The second one was the codification, upholding of human right. Under upholding of the human rights, we study 4 parts: codification, protection, promoted, and monitored. Right? Now what it says, human rights must be codified in law, protected by courts, promoted by government and key groups, that means state actors and non-state actors, and monitored by independent bodies who are free from the state government. All right, so far I hope that this one is clear to you. Let me just open this slide further. Okay. Codification of human right is more effective at the national level. What do you understand by codification? It's law, right? Of human right is more effective at national level. What would you consider at the national level? Your country's constitution. All right. Yeah. This is from where you are referring your law also. This is from where you are becoming aware which right do you get, which duty do you get, which duty are you supposed to perform, which right has been given to you by the country you are living in, right? Then the international or regional level, where there are fewer courts to enforce the law. That means that in case if a country has codified the law, high chance that the country that the international regional level kind of laws might not be implemented very well, as who are, look here, who are protecting these laws? Courts, right? In case if you have codified the law but not protected by the judiciary or court, would it be useful? No, right? So that's why we are saying that those codified at the national level would be more effective than at the international or the regional level because of the enforcement of the law. So far so clear? Okay. Now these are some of the screenshots which I have taken from one of the textbooks published by Pearson. It gives smaller definition of all these: codification, protection, promotion, and monitoring. What it says: human rights need to be formalized in law. This can be done at international level. For example, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Right. If you remember, in the UDHR I discussed about 2 covenants which were published in 1966, and they got its enactment somewhere in 1976, right? So this is called codification of the law. At regional level, for example, the European Convention on Human Rights. So that means all these documents have been written down at the international level or at the regional level. Or at national level, as I said, your country's constitution. For example, here it is given UK Human Rights Act 1998, but instead of that, you can think of your country's constitution or your country's major law also, which has taken place during your time if you want to take that. But if you want to take any earlier law, you are allowed to do that also. Codification is no guarantee of effective protection but can provide a legal basis for protection to take place. So that means the first foundation is protection. The first foundation, that it has the legal basis, that human right has the legal basis. If it is not written in any law book, that means it is gonna be fragile, it is not gonna be promoted or protected by any of the courts. So first step, that you give them the legal basis, right? Further to this one is protection. Once set out in law, this is the second step, human rights need to be actively protected. The most effective way is for independent courts to adjudicate on breaches of human rights laws. National courts are usually the only option for judicial protection, except in the case of the European Court of Human Rights, which acts as a court of appeal for cases in member states of the Council of Europe. So that means there are some special appeal courts as well apart your courts, right? In case if it is required, where it is felt that the judiciary of that country can be biased, then there can be some external appeal courts as well, can be set up as well, right? Then it comes promotion. Human rights need to be actively promoted both before and after they have been effectively codified. If it is not promoted, that means it is of no use. This involves a wide range of groups from government, international organization, and civil society, championing specific human rights. Nation states may promote human rights and encourage other states to follow their example through a positive track record of codification and enforcement. That means not necessarily promotion is taking place only by state actors, but it can also be taken place by non-state actors also. State actors can set their own example where they can say that, okay, this is my example where I have been working very efficiently to protect the human right, and this is how you can also do it. But remember, in this name, at times country may intervene or interfere in the other country unnecessarily also, which is known as politicization of human right, or which is also known as humanitarian intervention also, right? You have lot of example, think over it. NGOs such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty are high profile promoters of human rights, frequently highlighting gaps in codification and protection. So they are the torchbearer to keep all the human rights high. They are the one who would talk about the codification, protection, and all these things. For example, the United States has advanced gay rights within their country and is now seeking to promote the same rights in Africa. So who are doing? These are some bodies. It could be the government or the non-governmental bodies. Then lastly, it is monitoring. Human rights need to be actively monitored by independent bodies to ensure that government are complying with their own national laws. So that means that there need to be some independent bodies that should not be biased or get influenced by the government, and they need to make such kind of commitment that everything is smooth enough, all the rights of the people are protected safely. Governments are committed to codify the laws, to protect the laws also. So monitoring, independent bodies, right? International law and international norms standard more generally. The UN Human Rights Council, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, along with human rights NGOs are the principal actors in this area. Fair enough? Did you understand these four things? So under the upholding of human right, we are gonna study four things. One is codification, second is protection of human right, promotion of human right, and monitoring of human right. So far so clear. Now we'll take one by one. We'll start with codification. Please continue watching my next video. In next video, I would be now going in bit detail of the codification, but I will give you some reading to go through this one, and I will be asking you to watch some of the videos. You will get all the data, all the information on my slide, which I will post.